3 days. Jesus rises after 3 days. Jonah is in the whale for 3 days. The Hindu universe goes through 3 states. The Norse cosmos has 3 roots. The Celtic otherworld has 3 realms. Islamic prayer positions, number 3, core movements. In virtually every Indo-European language, 3 is the number that means complete. Why? 7. 7 days of creation, 7 deadly sins, 7 heavens in Islam, 7 chakras, 7 notes in a musical scale, 7 colors in a rainbow, 7 branches on the Jewish menorah, 7 levels of the Aztec heavens, 7 gates to the Babylonian underworld. Why 7? 40. 40 days and nights of flood, 40 years in the desert, 40 days of Jesus' temptation. Muhammad received revelation across 40 years of active prophethood. The Buddha meditated for 49 days, 7 times 7. Islamic tradition holds that the soul forms fully at 40 days in the womb, 40 days of mourning across multiple Middle Eastern cultures. Why 40? And 12, which we touched on in the Zodiac video. 12 apostles, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 signs of the Zodiac, 12 Olympian gods, 12 months, 12 hours of day, 12 of night, 12 stages of the Buddhist chain of dependent origination, 12 animals in the Chinese zodiac, 12 labors of Hercules, 12. Here's what's actually going on. Some of these numbers have simple, concrete explanations rooted in astronomy, in biology, in the structure of the physical world, and those explanations are genuinely surprising. Some of them are psychological. They work because of how the human brain counts, patterns, and remembers. And some of them, the ones that cross every cultural boundary, appear in traditions with zero historical contact, recur across 4,000 years of recorded human thought. Those ones don't have a clean explanation. And the absence of a clean explanation is itself the most interesting thing about them. This is not a mystical video. We are not going to tell you that numbers are magic. But we are going to show you that the recurring appearance of specific numbers across every major tradition in human history is not coincidence, not shared borrowing, and not noise. It is a signal. And figuring out what it's a signal of is one of the more fascinating problems in the history of ideas. 3. The first number that means something. Start with 3, because 3 is where number meaning begins. 1 is not really a number in the way we use numbers. 1 is a thing. 2 is the first distinction, this and that, self and other, day and night. 2 is binary, powerful but limited. 3 is where complexity starts. 3 is the first number that allows a middle, beginning, middle, end, past, present, future, birth, life, death, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. The triangle, the first stable geometric shape you can build. This is not mysticism. This is how cognition works. The human brain structures experience in 3s more naturally than in any other grouping. Linguists call it the rule of 3 rhetoric. Literature, comedy, music, and memory all operate most naturally in triads. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Friends, Romans, countrymen. Sex, lies, and videotape. Stop, drop, and roll. 3 is the cognitive sweet spot. Enough to show a pattern, not so many that memory strains. When theologians and mythmakers reached for a number to structure their most important concepts, 3 was always going to be the first candidate. Not because of mystical significance, because of how human minds organize information. The Trinity. Christian theology's most distinctive and most contested doctrine. God as 3 persons, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, in one divine nature. The theology took centuries to formalize. The Council of Nicaea in 325 CE was called specifically to settle disagreements about the relationship between the Father and the Son. The final formulation, three persons, one substance, co-equal, co-eternal, is one of the most carefully constructed philosophical statements in the history of religion. But the instinct toward threeness in describing God appears long before Nicaea. The Gospel of Matthew has Jesus commanding baptism in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Paul's letters end repeatedly with three-part blessings. The book of Revelation has God described as who is, and who was, and who is to come. Three temporal dimensions collapsed into divine identity. Why three? Because God needs to be described as complete. And three is the number that feels complete to the human mind in a way that two, which feels like a contrast, a conflict, never does. The Hindu Trimurti. Brahma, the creator. Vishnu, the preserver. Shiva, the destroyer. These three are not three separate gods in Hindu theology. They are three aspects of a single divine reality, Brahman. Three functions that the one ultimate must perform to maintain the existence of the universe: create, sustain, dissolve. Notice, this is structurally identical to the Christian logic of the Trinity, not the content. The content is completely different. But the logic, one ultimate reality, three necessary aspects expressed as distinct persons or functions while remaining fundamentally one. Hindu and Christian traditions developed their Trinitarian theology independently. The structural parallel is not influence. It is the same cognitive architecture arriving at the same solution. The Norse. Odin, Vili, and Ve, the three brothers who create the world from the body of Ymir. Odin, Honir, and Loki, the three gods who travel together and encounter the giants. The three Norns, Urd, Verdandi, and Skuld, who weave the threads of fate at the base of Yggdrasil. What was, what is becoming, what shall be. Three fates, three time dimensions. Same structure as the Vedic tradition. Same structure as the pre-Socratic Greek philosophers who divided time into past, present, future. Three in Mesopotamia. The three great Babylonian gods, Anu sky, Enlil, wind and storm, Enki, water and wisdom, divided the universe between them. Three realms, heavens, earth, underworld, the cosmos as three layers. The deeper question, why do humans consistently structure the divine in threes? The most honest answer combines two things: the cognitive naturalness of three as a complete unit, and the specific observation that three captures the fundamental structure of existence, beginning, middle, end better than any other small number. A universe that began, that continues, and that will end, described by a divinity whose nature encompasses all three dimensions. That universe almost inevitably generates a threefold theology. Three is not arbitrary. It is what you get when you try to describe totality with the smallest number that can contain it. 7, the number the sky wrote first. 7 has a specific, concrete, astronomical origin, and once you know it, you cannot unknow it. Look up at the night sky on a clear night, away from city lights. The ancient sky watchers, Babylonian, Egyptian, Greek, Chinese, Indian, all saw the same thing: a set of bright objects that moved against the background of fixed stars. Objects that wandered, that tracked their own paths, that appeared and disappeared according to their own cycles. They counted 7: the Sunday, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. 7 moving objects in an otherwise fixed sky. 7 objects that, unlike the stars, changed position night to night. 7 objects that seemed, from the human perspective, to operate by their own will and logic in a universe that otherwise moved with clockwork regularity. These 7 became the 7 classical planets, And from this astronomical observation, 7 objects moving through the sky, an enormous structure of meaning was built. The Babylonian Foundation. Babylonian astronomy assigned each of the 7 planets to one of 7 days in a week. This is not coincidence or symbolism. This was a specific calendrical decision made by Babylonian astronomers around the 2nd millennium BCE. The 7-day week does not divide neatly into a solar year. It does not divide neatly into a lunar month. It has no natural astronomical basis that forces it to be 7. And yet it spread from Babylon across the entire world and has been used continuously for over 3,000 years across cultures that had no direct contact with Babylon and no obvious reason to adopt this particular unit of time. Measurement. The 7-day week persists because it was transmitted through the Babylonian diaspora, through Jewish tradition, through the Roman Empire, through Islam with such force and continuity that no other system gained enough traction to displace it. And the names of the days preserve the 7 planets directly. In English, which went through Germanic transmission, Sunday, the Sunday; Monday, the Moon; Tuesday, Tu, the Germanic Mars; Wednesday, Woden, the Germanic Mercury; Thursday, Thor, the Germanic Jupiter; Friday, Frigg, the Germanic Venus; Saturday, Saturn. That one didn't change at all. You use the 7 classical planets every single time you say the day of the week. The Babylonian sky is embedded in your daily language. 7 in the Bible. The 7-day creation narrative in Genesis is almost certainly structured in 7 days. Because of the week, the 7-day unit was already ancient and culturally fundamental by the time Genesis was written down in its current form. But 7 in the Hebrew Bible goes far deeper than creation week. The number 7 Shiva in Hebrew is etymologically connected to the Hebrew word for oath and for completeness. To swear an oath in ancient Hebrew was literally to seven oneself. Abraham gives Abimelech 7 lambs to ratify a covenant. Jacob serves 7 years for Rachel. The Jubilee year, the year of release and restoration, comes after 7 cycles of 7 years. 7 is the number of divine completion. When God rests on the 7th day, it is not because he is tired, it is because 7 is the number at which a thing is finished, whole, sufficient. The menorah, the 7-branched lampstand at the center of the temple, was not decorative. It was a cosmological statement. 7 lights, 7 planets, the light of the divine illuminating all 7 layers of the created order. 7 heavens. The concept of 7 heavens appears in Islamic tradition, in Jewish mystical tradition, in ancient Mesopotamian cosmology, and in various Gnostic systems, all relatively independently, though with some cross-pollination. The Islamic 7 heavens mentioned in the Quran and expanded in Hadith placed different prophets in different heavens. Adam in the 1st, Jesus and John in the 2nd, Joseph in the 3rd, Idris in the 4th, Aaron in the 5th, Moses in the 6th, Abraham in the 7th. The structure mirrors the Babylonian cosmic architecture. 7 planetary spheres, each governed by a divine being, stacked between Earth and the throne of God. 7 is not just a number here. It is a map of the cosmos between the human and the divine. 7 in Hinduism. 7 chakras. The 7 sacred rivers of India, the Sapta Sindhu. The 7 sages Saptarishi, whose stars form the Big Dipper, and who appear in the oldest layer of Vedic literature as the guardians of cosmic knowledge. 7 notes in the musical scale. The Saptasvaras, which Hindu musical theory connects directly to the 7 chakras and to the 7 planetary spheres in a unified theory of vibration that runs from the cosmic to the prize, bodily. The Indian tradition makes the connection explicit that other traditions leave implicit. 7 is the number of complete ordered systems. A system with 7 elements has all it needs. Why 7 specifically? The astronomical answer 7 classical planets explains its origin. But it doesn't fully explain why 7, once established as significant, found such purchase in so many non-astronomical contexts. Here's the cognitive piece. 7 is the known limit of human working memory. In 1956, psychologist George Miller published one of the most cited papers in cognitive science, The Magical Number 7, plus or minus 2. His finding: human short-term memory can hold approximately 7 items, no more, before performance degrades. 7 things is the most the mind can hold simultaneously. A list of 7 can be memorized. A list of 8 starts to blur. The practical implications for oral cultures that transmitted knowledge through memory, through recitation, through lists learned by heart, were enormous. 7 was not just cosmologically significant, it was pedagogically optimal. Lists of 7 could be reliably transmitted across generations. Lists of 8 could not. The sacred and the practical arriving at the same number. 40, the number that means long enough. 40 is different from 3 and 7. 3 is about cognitive structure. 7 is about the sky. 40 is about time specifically, about the minimum amount of time required for a thing to be real. Before we get to the theology, 40 days is approximately 6 weeks, and 6 weeks is the minimum time frame across which a significant biological change becomes visible. A pregnant woman begins to show after approximately 6 weeks. A wound takes approximately 6 weeks to heal completely. A seed planted in hospitable soil germinates and establishes itself in approximately 6 weeks. A person who stops eating will die in approximately 40 days. 40 days is the threshold of significant biological transformation in both directions, toward life and toward death. Ancient cultures without access to modern timekeeping still lived in bodies that observed these rhythms. 6 weeks, 40 days became the intuitive unit for long enough for something real to happen. The flood. 40 days and 40 nights of rain. The Noahic flood narrative uses 40 as the duration not to specify a precise meteorological event, but to say, long enough for everything to change. Long enough for the old world to be genuinely, irrevocably gone. The desert. 40 years of wandering in the Sinai. An entire generation, everyone who left Egypt as adults, dies in the desert. 40 years is long enough for a generation to pass. Long enough for the people who remembered slavery to be replaced by a generation that only knew freedom, however harsh. The 40 years is not arbitrary. It is the minimum time frame for a complete generational replacement. The biology of a human generation is approximately 35 to 40 years. 40 years in the desert means no one who arrives in the promised land remembers Egypt as home. Jesus and Mohammed. Jesus spends 40 days in the desert being tempted before his public ministry begins. Long enough for the testing to be real, long enough for it to cost something. Muhammad receives his first revelation at 40 years of age. Across various traditions, Jewish, Islamic, 40 years is the threshold of wisdom. The Talmud suggests that a person does not fully understand their teacher until 40 years after learning from them. The mind needs 40 years to fully integrate what it has received. 40 in Islamic practice. 40 days of mourning, Arba'in, is observed in Shia Islam for the martyrs of Karbala. 40 days after a death, across multiple Middle Eastern and Central Asian cultures, is the point at which the formal period of grief ends and ordinary life resumes. The soul, in Islamic tradition, completes its formation in the womb at 40 days. Before 40 days, a different set of religious rules applies to a lost pregnancy than after it. The theological status of the developing person changes at 40 days. 40 in the Psalms. Psalm 90, attributed to Moses, says, "The years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength, 80. But in the verses before it, 40 years of divine anger, 40 years of wandering in the shadow of divine disapproval, 40 as the lifespan of a consequence. The Buddhist 49. The Buddha meditates under the Bodhi tree for 49 days before achieving enlightenment. 49 is 7 times 7, not 40, but the structure is the same. The minimum duration for a genuine transformation to be complete. In Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the bardo, the intermediate state between death and rebirth, lasts 49 days, 7 cycles of 7. The soul takes 7 weeks to fully disengage from one life before entering the next. Why 40 keeps appearing? It is not one thing. It is several things that converge on the same number. The biology of significant change, 6 weeks, 40 days, gives it its primary anchor in physical reality. The coincidence of this biological threshold with the minimum duration for genuine human transformation learning, grieving, testing, forming, gives it its psychological resonance. And the round number quality of 40, clearly more than a month, clearly less than 2 months, large enough to be significant without being so large as to be permanent, makes it the instinctive choice whenever a storyteller or theologian needs to say, long enough. Long enough for the flood to destroy. Long enough for the desert to transform. Long enough for the prophet to be tested. Long enough for the soul to form. 40 is not magic. It is the number that keeps appearing because it keeps being true. 12, the number the universe agreed on. We covered 12 extensively in the Zodiac video, but there's a deeper question that video didn't ask. Why did every civilization that developed a sophisticated number system eventually converge on 12 as the unit for organizing large-scale time? It's not because they were all copying Babylon. It's because 12 has a mathematical property that no other small number shares. 12 is divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. 6 divisors. 10. The number of fingers, the basis of the decimal system, is divisible by 1, 2, 5, and 10. 4 divisors. 12 can be divided into halves, thirds, quarters, and sixths. You can give 12 people equal shares with no remainder using any of those groupings. You can divide a 12-month year into 4 seasons of 3 months. You can divide it into 2 halves of 6. You can divide a 12-hour day into 3 4-hour watches, or 4 3-hour watches, or 6 2-hour watches, any of which allows you to organize human activity without fractions. 10 cannot do this. 10 divides badly into thirds, badly into quarters. Ancient cultures, Babylonian, Chinese, Indian, that needed to organize large groups of people, large amounts of goods, and large spans of time, discovered independently that 12 was mathematically superior to 10 for practical administration. The Babylonian sexagesimal system base, 60, was built on the same logic. 60 is divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, and 30. The most divisor-rich number below 100. This is why we still use it. 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 360 degrees in a circle. The Babylonians chose 60 for the same reason they chose 12. It divides without remainder in the maximum number of useful ways. 12 and the divine. Once 12 was established as the practical unit for organizing time and administration, it became the number of completeness for human institutions, which then attracted theological meaning. 12 tribes of Israel, 12 apostles, 12 Olympian gods, 12 labors of Hercules, 12 knights of the Round Table. These are not all astronomical. They are political and organizational structures that adopted the culturally resonant number of the calendar and then invested it with theological weight. The 12 apostles are 12, partly because Israel had 12 tribes. Jesus was presenting himself as the founder of a reconstituted Israel, and 12 apostles was the deliberate echo of 12 tribal patriarchs. The 12 Olympians are 12 partly because 12 was the number of completeness in Greek administrative culture, a full council representing every domain. But they are also 12 because 12 felt, by the time these traditions were being formed, like the correct number for a complete divine assembly. The feeling was culturally produced by centuries of 12-month calendars and 12-unit administrative divisions. 12 is the number of completeness because 12 is the number by which humans most naturally divide their world. And then they looked at the divine and asked how many gods it takes to fully govern everything. And the answer that felt right was the number they already used for completeness: the Shiite 12 Imams. In Shia Islam, the tradition of 12 Imams, the legitimate spiritual and political successors of the Prophet Muhammad, beginning with Ali and ending with the 12th Imam, who is believed to be an occultation, hidden from the world until the end of time, carries the same structural weight. 12 complete leaders, a complete succession. The 12th Imam's return will complete the cycle, as the completion of the 12th zodiac sign completes the year. 12 is the number at which something is whole. The numbers nobody talks about: 108, 432,000, and the ones that break the pattern: 3, 7, 12, 40. Those are the obvious ones. But there are numbers that appear with almost as much persistence in more specific traditions that reveal something different about why numbers become sacred. 108. 108 is the sacred number of Hinduism and Buddhism, almost uniquely, and its origin is astronomical. The distance from the Earth to the Sun is approximately 108 times the diameter of the Sunday. The distance from the Earth to the Moon is approximately 108 times the diameter of the Moon. The diameter of the Sun is approximately 108 times the diameter of the Earth. These relationships, which modern astronomy has confirmed with precision, were apparently known in ancient India through sophisticated naked-eye observation and mathematical calculation. Whether the ancients knew these specific ratios or simply discovered 108 through different means and the astronomical correspondence is coincidence is genuinely debated among historians of science. But the result is that 108 appears everywhere in Indian religious architecture and practice. 108 beads on a mala, prayer rosary, 108 names of the major deities, 108 Upanishads, 108 sacred sites, 108 pressure points in the body recognized by Ayurvedic medicine. In Tibetan Buddhism, the same number, 108 volumes of the Kangyur, the collected teachings of the Buddha, a number that described the proportions of the solar system, embedded itself into the deepest structures of two of the world's major religions, 432,000. This number appears in sources so varied and so geographically separated that it constitutes one of the more genuinely mysterious numerical coincidences in history. The Babylonian historian Berossus, writing in the 3rd century BCE, described the period from the creation of the world to the Great Flood as 432,000 years. In Hindu cosmology, the Kali Yuga, the current Dark Age, the shortest and worst of the 4 cosmic ages, lasts exactly 432,000 years. The Norse Gylfaginning states that Valhalla has 540 doors, each wide enough for 800 warriors to march through abreast. 540 multiplied by 800 equals 432,000. 3 traditions: Babylonian, Hindu, Norse, with no clear transmission route between them, all arrived at the same number for something involving cosmic time or the warriors at the end of time. Mythology scholar Joseph Campbell noted this correspondence and spent years trying to explain it. He proposed that it derived from ancient astronomical observations, specifically that 432,000 is related to the precession of the equinoxes. The precession cycle takes approximately 25,920 years. Divide by 60 the Babylonian base number, and you get 432. Multiply by 1,000, and you get 432,000. If ancient astronomers were tracking the precession of the equinoxes, and we know the Babylonians were as far back as 700 BCE, though likely working from even older data, then 432,000 could be a number derived from the most fundamental long-cycle astronomical observation available to the ancient world. And that number, once discovered, would naturally attach itself to ideas about the longest relevant time periods: the age before the flood, the age of cosmic decline, the number of warriors that represent all of humanity's fighting capacity. The numbers that don't appear. Equally interesting are the numbers that are not sacred anywhere. 8 appears occasionally, the Noble Eightfold Path in Buddhism, the 8 trigrams in Chinese cosmology, but never with the universality of 3, 7, or 12. 11 appears almost nowhere as sacred. 13 famously appears primarily as unlucky, the number of disruption, the number at which 12's completeness is violated. The absence of certain numbers is as telling as the presence of others. Numbers that divide badly, numbers that fall between meaningful units, numbers that have no clear astronomical or biological anchor. Those numbers don't become sacred. They remain just numbers. The sacred numbers are sacred because something in the structure of reality keeps generating them. What these numbers are actually doing. There's a version of this question that has a boring answer. Humans see patterns. Humans are superstitious. Once a number is considered significant in one tradition, it gets transmitted to others through cultural contact. And there's your explanation. This is partially true. Cultural transmission is real. Babylonian astronomical tradition influenced Greek, Egyptian, Persian, Indian, and eventually European number symbolism. The transmission is documented and undeniable. But it doesn't explain everything. It doesn't explain 432,000 appearing in Norse, Hindu, and Babylonian sources with no clear transmission route. It doesn't explain the independent development of 12-unit calendars in civilizations with no contact. It doesn't explain why 40 derived from the biology of the human body appears in the same contexts across cultures that had different contact with Babylonian tradition. Here's what I think is actually happening, and it's less mystical than the numbers or magic position, and more interesting than the pure cultural transmission position. Certain numbers are anchored to real, stable features of the world that every human civilization eventually observes. The sky produces 7 moving objects, visible to the naked eye. Every clear sky culture will eventually count them and find 7. Once 7 is found in the sky, it finds its way into theology, because the sky is where theology starts. The year divides most naturally into 12 lunar months. Every agricultural society will eventually arrive at 12 as the basic unit of annual time. Once 12 is the number of the year, it becomes the number of completeness. The human body transforms significantly over the course of 6 weeks. Every culture that pays attention to pregnancy, to healing, to survival will find 40. Once 40 is found in the body, it finds its way into theology, because theology starts with birth and death. And 3 is not found in the sky or the body. 3 is found in the mind. It is the smallest number that encodes a complete structure. Every mind will find it independently, because every mind is the same kind of object. These numbers are not sacred because ancient peoples were mystical or superstitious. They are sacred because ancient peoples were observant. They looked at the sky, at the body, at the structure of time, at the pattern of seasons, and they found these numbers embedded there, not invented, not chosen arbitrarily, but discovered. And then because they were human beings, trying to understand not just how the world works, but why, they asked, if these numbers keep appearing in the world, what does that mean about the world? Their answer was that the world is structured, that it has a pattern, that behind the apparent randomness of storms and droughts and births and deaths, There is a coherent order, and the numbers are evidence of that order. They may have been right about the conclusion, even when they were wrong about the mechanism. Because modern physics, which is the most rigorous attempt ever made to describe how the world actually works, has arrived at a position that would not have surprised the ancient skywatchers. The universe is written in mathematics, not metaphorically. The fundamental laws of physics are mathematical relationships. The universe behaves as if it is, at its deepest level, a mathematical structure, and the numbers that describe it are not invented by scientists, but discovered. The ancients looked at the sky, found 7, and concluded the universe has structure. They were 3,000 years early and completely right. 3, 7, 40, 12. You've seen all of them today in contexts you didn't expect. You'll keep seeing them now that you know what to look for in the texts you've read, in the traditions you've grown up around, in the architecture of religious practice that you may or may not share, but that has shaped the civilization you live in, regardless. The question that started this video was, why do these specific numbers appear in every religion in history? The answer turns out to be, because they appear in everything else first. In the sky, in the body, in time, in the structure of how the human mind processes and remembers the world. The ancient peoples who made these numbers sacred were not doing something separate from understanding the world. They were doing the same thing, with different tools, with a different vocabulary, toward the same end. They were trying to find the structure. And the structure kept handing them the same numbers. Not because the numbers are magic, because the world is not random, and the numbers are where that non-randomness first becomes visible.